Hello and welcome to the 12th and final lesson of the Earth topic. You have done loads of brilliant learning in this topic about the Earth's natural resources and how we can use chemistry to change them into useful products. You have learned a lot in the last 11 lessons. You've done loads of work lesson by lesson, and today's lesson, lesson 12, is revision. There is a lot to revise. You've put a lot of effort in, learned a lot of science along the way, and so we are going to go through this revision checklist to help you go back over some of the things from this topic and quiz yourself on the knowledge organizer, and I'll talk you through how to do that as we move through the video. We're going to start with some improvement questions. I've been having a look at how you did on the Show My Homework quizzes for this topic. So let's have a look at that first. Here are the driving questions for lessons 1 to 11. There's so much learning in this topic. You have worked really hard every lesson to get your learning, keep your learning going at home in this difficult situation. And when you've been doing the Show My Homework quizzes, the average percentage for year 7 is here. And that translates into a score of around about 8 out of 10 for nearly every test. Right, lesson 7 and 10 were around the 9 out of 10 mark. And those are great scores. There's some tricky questions in those Show My Homework quizzes, and it shows you've built up a really good understanding of this topic. So I want to say a big well done to you for showing good understanding and for keeping your learning going at home. There is a little bit of room for improvement on lessons 5 and 6, so we're going to start with that, having a look back at lessons 5 and 6. And in lesson 5, these are the questions that people found more tricky. The correct answers are shown on the screen. And so we're going to have a look at crude oil and the hydrocarbons in crude oil. Now, crude oil is found in the ground, in the Earth's crust, alongside natural gas. But the crude oil originally came from animals and plants that died millions of years ago. Okay, we didn't put crude oil into the ground. It was already there when we found it. It was formed millions of years ago from dead animals and plants. We then dig it out of the ground. We drill for it, we bring it up in pipes, but it then has to be separated. There is a mixture of hydrocarbons in the crude oil that needs to be separated so we can then use it in the form of petrol and diesel. So how do we separate it? Well, firstly, we boil it, evaporate it, heat it up to about 400 degrees, and everything in the mixture turns into a gas. So boiling, evaporation, is when a liquid changes into a gas. Crude oil is a liquid. We change it into a gas by boiling and evaporating it. Okay, so we now have a gas made of a mixture of hydrocarbons at about 400 degrees. Then we let it cool down and it condenses. That means going from gas back to liquid. Condensing is gas turning back into liquid. But each part of the mixture turns back to liquid at a slightly different temperature. And that means we can separate out the hydrocarbons in the mixture at slightly different temperatures. Okay, so the crude oil gets boiled or evaporated to turn the whole thing into gas. The whole mixture turns into gas. But then when it condenses back to liquid, each part of the mixture turns back to liquid at a slightly different temperature. So these different hydrocarbons, petrol, diesel, kerosene, fuel oil, can be collected at slightly different temperatures because they all condense at slightly different temperatures. Right, pause the video, pick the right answer. Is it A, B, C, or D? Let's have a look. The correct answer was B. Crude oil is evaporated to make a gas. Then it condenses, that means turns back to liquid, but it forms different liquids like petrol and diesel. They all condense at slightly different temperatures so we can collect the different hydrocarbons at different temperatures. Right, moving on to lesson 6. Here are the questions that could have had a bit of improvement. I think with question 7, it might have just been misreading the question. Quite a lot of people put that hydrogen atoms come from the air, right? But they don't. They come from inside the methane, inside the hydrocarbon. We're going to have a look at that, right? Now, when a hydrocarbon reacts with oxygen, we need to remember that the hydrocarbon is made of hydrogen atoms and carbon atoms. So the hydrogen atoms in the reaction come from inside the hydrocarbon. The hydrocarbon is made of hydrogen atoms and carbon atoms. The oxygen atoms then join together with hydrogen atoms to make water. So we get water from burning a hydrocarbon because the hydrogen from the hydrocarbon joins together with oxygen from the air to make water. Okay, the carbon then joins together with oxygen to make carbon dioxide. Everybody got that right on the quiz. But the bit people weren't sure of was that where does the water come from? The hydrogen comes from the hydrocarbon. The oxygen comes from the air. They combine together to make water. Let's have a look at that in another way of representing it. Okay, here is methane, CH4, 1 carbon, 4 hydrogens, CH4. That reacts together with 2 lots of oxygen, 2 lots of O2. Right, so here's an O2 molecule, here's another one. There are 2 lots of O2. Let's see what happens to them during the reaction. Right, let's have a look. Firstly, all the bonds break. So all the bonds have now disappeared. The bonds have broken. Then the atoms start to rearrange. Okay, so during a chemical reaction, atoms don't get lost or gained. They can't appear or disappear. They get rearranged. So the carbon joins together with 2 oxygens to form carbon dioxide, CO2. Okay, so carbon dioxide is made when the carbon atoms join together with the oxygen atoms. What's left? Hydrogen and oxygen. Remember, the hydrogen came from the methane originally. But then we see oxygen and hydrogens joining together to make water. And then there's enough atoms for another oxygen to join with the rest of the hydrogens to make another water molecule. So 2 lots of water, H2O, are made in the reaction. But if we think about where that H2O came from, the oxygen originally came from the oxygen in the air, but the hydrogen came from the hydrogen in the hydrocarbon inside methane. Okay, and in all chemical reactions, atoms cannot appear or disappear, they get rearranged to make new products. Okay, right, pause the video and have a look at the equation up here and try and count how many atoms of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen are on each side. Pause the video and work out the numbers. Here we go, let's have a look through. On the reactant side, there is 1 atom of carbon, 4 atoms of hydrogen, and altogether 2 lots of O2 makes 4 atoms of oxygen. Let's look at the products. How many atoms of carbon? 1. How many atoms of hydrogen? 2 lots of 2 makes 4. How many atoms of oxygen? 2 over here, 2 from the water, 4 altogether. Now, if you have a look, it's the same on both sides. Atoms cannot appear or disappear. Right, now, we've got one more question to look at. Remember that the H atoms, the hydrogen, came from methane, but ended up in the water, in the H2O. Pause the video. When a hydrocarbon burns, why is water always made? Pause the video, choose A, B, C, or D. Okay, the correct answer was B. Hydrogen atoms from the hydrocarbon combine with oxygen from the air to make H2O. So the H2O comes from the hydrogen atoms in the hydrocarbon joining together with oxygen. Okay, that was our improvement questions. Well done if you got those right and improved your understanding of the areas that we found slightly trickier. Although I do have to say, the understanding across this topic has been really, really good. But there's a huge amount in this topic to remember. So I've put it all onto a knowledge organizer. That is a way of organizing all of the knowledge on one page. But look how much there is. Okay, so we're going to go through this step by step, section by section. The next part of the video, we're going to focus in on each section and then ask you some quiz questions. So let's have a look first at section A of the knowledge organizer. There's so much to remember. Quizzing really helps to increase your memory. So pause this video, read through all the information in section A, then on the next slide, there will be some quiz questions for you to answer. Okay, so pause the video for as long as you need to read and try and remember everything in section A. Pause it now. Okay, I hope you've taken your time to try and remember everything in section A. Here come the quiz questions. You can write these down, you can jot these down, or you can just think it to yourself. But can you remember what was in section A? Pause the video for as long as you need and answer these questions. Let's go through the answers. Here we go. You can pause this. I won't necessarily read them all out every time, but pause the video if you need to and see if you were right. Please remember, the idea of quizzing yourself is to increase your memory. All of this material comes from lessons 1, 2, and 3. It was quite a while ago, it was a few weeks that you learnt this. Can you still remember? It's normal to forget things. Quizzing helps to get it back in your memory. Let's move on. Section B of the Knowledge Organiser. Same thing, pause the video, take as long as you need, try and remember everything. Okay, I'm going to move these on to the quiz questions. Here we go. Pause the video, answer the quiz questions. Can you remember? Let's go through the answers. Here we go. Did you get it right? Lots of facts, so many facts in this topic, so much to remember. Keep quizzing yourself and you'll remember more and more and more. Pause it if you need to, because I'm going to move this on to the section C part of the Knowledge Organiser. Here we go. So much in this topic, so much to remember. You've done so much learning, just goes to show how much you learn in science. Pause the video, read everything in section C, try and remember it. Okay, I'm going to move this video along to the quiz questions. Here we go with the quiz questions for section C. Go for it. Okay, I'm going to move it along to the answers for section C. How much are you remembering? How much are you able to get right? You can always come back and do this quiz again. The Knowledge Organiser is going to appear later in the video. You can make up your own quiz questions. You can get somebody at home to quiz you on it. But right now, I'm going to move the video along to section D. Here we go. Once again, pause the video, read it all, try and remember. Okay, and now here come the quiz questions for section D. Here we go. Pause the video, answer the questions. Right, here come the answers to section D. And remember, the reason for doing this is because quizzing helps to increase your memory. So difficult to remember so much science from so many lessons. Quizzing yourself on the facts on the Knowledge Organiser is a really good way to keep your memory of this science going. Okay, right, now here is the whole thing. So what you could do now is you could pause the video and get somebody at home to ask you some quiz questions, or you could make up your own quiz questions. You could jot them down and see if you can answer them yourself. There's a lot to remember. Just goes to show how much you've learned in this topic, and it's really hard to keep it all in your brain at the same time. Now, we're going to have a look now at one more tactic, but this is optional, depending on how long this has taken you. We try and set an hour's work each week. So if you've got some time left, then you could make your own version of the Knowledge Organiser. Now, we call this blank page retrieval practice. So what you do is you start with a blank page in 4 sections, and you put in as much as you can remember. Now, you won't remember everything. You won't get 100%, but the idea is to test your memory. How much can you write in each section, especially after you've been quizzing yourself? Now, it doesn't have to look exactly like the original Knowledge Organiser. It's your own version. So write in as much as you can. Then you can always check against the real Knowledge Organiser to see how much you got right, see if there was how many things there was that you forgot. It's normal to forget things, right? Now, it's not a copying exercise. Don't sit and copy the real Knowledge Organiser from the screen. Do your own version from memory, and then, if you want to look at the real one, add in some detail afterwards. Right, so here's some instructions, but this is optional and only if you have time. Start with a blank piece of paper. Don't look at the real one. You've quizzed yourself, you tried to increase your memory, so now you just fill in as much as you can from your memory. Go as fast as you can. Don't worry about it. Just write what you can, and if you can't remember something, that's fine. It doesn't need to match the real one. It doesn't need to look the same. It doesn't need to be totally neat. It's about how much can you remember, and you just write it all down. You write what you can remember, then afterwards compare it to the real one, and if you want to, you could always add some more detail in at that stage. I had to go at this, right? Now, because I'm a teacher, because I've taught this a lot of times, I got nearly everything, okay? And I recorded it in a speeded up version so that you can have a look. So here's my 4 sections. Started with the Earth and the sections of the Earth. And this took me about 20 minutes, right? So I've speeded this up, so it's only a 2-minute video. My writing's not the best. I'm not the neatest handwriting person in the world, but what I do like to do is use colors and little bubbles and lines and arrows to separate things, to section it up. And really, it's about how much can you remember. As the teacher, you'd expect me to remember a lot, right? And I think I did pretty well. I got nearly everything. Yours might end up looking different, and that is absolutely fine. You just write down what you can remember. Use some bubbles, use some colors, use lines, use arrows, whatever helps it to stand out, whatever helps it to stick in your brain. Okay, and just don't worry about it. Write down as much as you can. You won't get everything. You can always look at the real one afterwards to see what you forgot. All right, so on to section C, hydrocarbons, crude oil, global warming, climate change, complete combustion, incomplete combustion. It just goes to show how much you learn in science, how much content we cover. And it's so difficult for you to keep it all in your brain at the same time. You've done a lot of good learning all the way through this topic. And using a knowledge organizer, quizzing yourself, testing your memory is a really good way to try and keep it all in your brain at the same time. So now I'm on to the chemical reactions bit, conservation of mass, reactant, product, exothermic and endothermic. We did that back in lesson 7. So much for you to remember. This seems to be slightly running out for a minute. There we go. Oh, little diagrams, little pictures, that can often help to remember facts. Temperature goes up, it's exothermic. Temperature goes down, it's endothermic. There we go. That was my completed knowledge organizer. Now, as you can see, mine is very detailed. That's because I'm the teacher. Yours will be less detailed. You might have much neater writing than me. You might be much better with your colors and your highlighters than me. But as a teacher, I would expect myself to be able to remember everything, pretty much everything. Okay. So, I'm the teacher who wrote the original knowledge organizer. So you'd expect me to lay it out in the same sort of way because I can remember it because I wrote it. Yours is allowed to look different. I don't want you to sit and copy things off the screen. Do your own version in your own style using your own layout. That's absolutely fine. You're allowed to use a different layout in some places. I haven't kept mine exactly the same. I've changed it a bit because it's about what's in my brain. What do I actually remember? I haven't put in as many words as the real knowledge organizer. I've been a bit more brief and summarized it, but that's a good thing. I've used bubbles and colors to create some sections. You can do the same. Only do this if you've got time. Don't copy the real one. Do your own version, okay? And that'll really help to prove to you just how much is in your brain and the fact that not quite everything's stuck in there, but then you can always look back at the real knowledge organizer to see if there's anything that you forgot. Now, that's the end of the Earth topic, and I want to say another massive well done to you for keeping your work going, for keeping your learning going at home. We are going to start a new topic. Okay, it's called the circle of life. It is a biology topic, and we're going to be learning all sorts of things about adaptations and how animals are similar and different to each other. And I just want to say a massive well done for all the work you've done in the Earth topic. Keep it up. You're doing so well. You're doing such a good job. Well done, Year 7. And look out for Circle of Life, Lesson 1, because that new topic will start next week. Well done. Thank you very much.